welcome back to the Goated Podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the NBA. And a few teams managed to wrap up their series, the Celtics, the Raptors, and the Heat being those three teams. All three of those series ended in sweeps. I didn't predict that for, I don't think, any of them. I believed that the Heat and the Pacers was going to be a pretty decent series. I thought it would go six, but the loss of Sabonis to them was just too much. They couldn't make any big shots when it mattered. Sabonis, I think, would have been a huge help in the series, especially against Bam Adebayo, because he just dominated the boards every game, it seemed like. So, yeah, that series ended on yesterday, I believe. Yeah, it was yesterday, Monday. But I'm going to start from Sunday. The Boston Celtics swept the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, it was it was not a close series at all. The Sixers, the loss of Ben Simmons was just too much for them. I believe that this was going to be a competitive series. I thought the Sixers would find a way to make it 6 games, at the very least 5 games, but every single time it seemed like the Sixers were going to pull away in a game. The Celtics just always had an answer, especially at the end of games. The Sixers just did not have a go-to guy. Every single time they would get the ball to Embiid in the post, the Celtics would just double him, and he'd either turn it over or, just force something up trying to get a foul call, and it wasn't working for him. Kemba Walker led the way with 32 points. I'm so excited to see Kemba playing at his full level. As a Celtics fan, I was very concerned going into the playoffs about Kemba's knee, because like I said, like 4 or 5 months passed, with the shutdown, and I was hearing like, oh, Kemba's going to be on a minutes restriction. His knee is still not 100%. I'm like, man, if his knee's not 100% by now, it's probably never going to be, right? But, they load managed him throughout the seeding games, had him on a minutes restriction. And, yeah, it seems to be paying off now because, yeah, he was the best player on the floor in game 4. So, yeah, Jason Tatum also, 28 points, 15 rebounds. Tatum's killing on the boards, really, like. Tatum's always been a really good rebounder ever since he's gotten to the league, and Jaylen Brown did his thing with 16 points. It sucks not having Hayward. I'm a little bit worried about the Toronto series coming up, without Gordon Hayward, but we'll see what happens with that. I believe it's going to be a good series regardless. Like I said with the Sixers, Al Horford is just, in my opinion, Al Horford played for my team for 3 years, so I know for a fact that Philly is not using him correctly. Al Horford is best being used in the pick and pop game, getting it to him in the high post, letting him make plays for others. But Horford's a really, really good passer. And I just feel like Philly doesn't use him to his strengths. And it must be frustrating for Sixers fans, to see this guy making all this money and he's basically a backup center for them. So I believe the Sixers are probably going to try to find a way to unload him onto another team if they can. They're probably going to have to attach draft assets and maybe a young player to get rid of that contract. They did fire Brett Brown, but it seems like right now they're going to be keeping the front office. At least Elton Brand. Elton Brand is going to be still remaining the Sixers GM. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. Tobias Harris, he had a nasty injury in this game. When I first saw it, I thought he was concussed, but he came back in the game, just had a Band-Aid, but he was bleeding pretty bad. It was pretty gruesome, but, all credit to him. He did not play well at all in this series, but he tried his ass off, so I got to give him credit for that, And, yeah, like I said, the Sixers have a lot of decisions they got to make in this offseason. I'm pretty sure there's going to be plenty of teams blowing up their phones about a trade for Simmons or Embiid, believing that the Sixers may want to get rid of one of them. But we'll see. If I was the Sixers, I would keep both of them. I don't think you could split two guys up like that. I understand, like, they are kind of an awkward fit together, but their talent levels are just so high. I don't think you can give up on something like that. If I was them, I would just do my best to try to unload one of those big contracts and try to get back at expiring and maybe a young player. Who knows? Like, they put themselves in a very bad position, obviously. There's not a whole lot that they can do really without giving up something that they really want to keep. So yeah, we'll see how it goes with them. And yeah, we're gonna move on to the Brooklyn Nets and Toronto Raptors. Yeah, I believe the series was gonna go 5 just because I believe like Karis LeVert was gonna drop 50 in one game. Like that guy's lethal sometimes. But yeah, it just never happened. Karis LeVert was great in that game. He had 35, but the rest of the Nets just couldn't do anything. They're playing G Leaguers at this point. There's not much left on that team. The Raptors bench, it was partly due to the fact that Kyle Lowry did suffer a sprained ankle in the first quarter, and the bench had to really come in and contribute. But the Raptors bench scored 100 points in this game, which I believe is an NBA record for the postseason. So it just shows you how deep the Toronto Raptors really are. Like I'm looking at Siakam 20 points, Anunoby 10, Gasol 9, Van Vliet 9, Lowry had 2 in 9 minutes, Matt Thomas at 12, Norman Powell off the bench 29 points, Terrence Davis 14, Ibaka 27, Hollis Jefferson 4, Stanley Johnson 9 points, Chris Boucher 3 points, and Watson off their bench with 2 points. So literally everyone who was active on that team at least had one bucket. So just shows you how deep Toronto really is, and it's going to be a very tough series for the Celtics. We don't know the status of Kyle Lowry going into game one. He did suffer a sprained ankle, like I said. Well, actually, no, I did read something today. Kyle Lowry said he's going to be good to go for game one, but, the type of player he is, he's not going to want to miss out on this game, so no matter how he's feeling. So we'll see how the ankle affects him in game one, and it should be a good one. I believe this is probably going to be the best series of the second round, in my opinion. So, yeah, we're going to move on to the Clippers and Mavericks, which was the game of the playoffs so far. It was just a back and forth game, really. Paul George, just the first 3 games, Paul George just was awful in games 2, 3, and 4. But especially in game 4, he only had 9 points on 3 of 14 shooting. Kawhi always does his thing. Kawhi's averaging 33 for the series, I think. He had 32. Lou Williams had 36 off the bench. But Luka Doncic with 43, 17, and 13. And with the game winner, the buzzer beater in overtime. I don't know why Doc Rivers kept Reggie Jackson in for that last possession. Only God knows why. But it came back to bite him because Luka crossed him up about 3 times and hit a step back right in his face to end the game, and stopping it from being a commanding 3-1 lead, which would effectively end the series, especially the fact that they don't have Porzingis, and especially the way Game 5 played out tonight for them. So, yeah, that was really good. And then, we'll move on. Lakers and Trailblazers, the Lakers, it seems like they're back to their championship form. Before the shutdown, the Lakers had beaten the Clippers and the Bucks back to back. They were playing their best basketball. The season gets shut down. They come back to the bubble. They can't hit a shot to save their lives, and everyone's worried about the Lakers. Myself too. I believe like the Lakers were gonna struggle to get to the NBA Finals with the way they were playing. But just in this game, especially with the Mamba jerseys, the black Mamba jerseys that they were wearing, the Lakers were just unbelievable. They hit everything. LeBron James, especially over these last 2 games, has just been completely unstoppable. Like vintage playoff LeBron James. Anthony Davis as well. And unfortunately, Damian Lillard is going to miss Game 5 with a sprained knee. So, yeah, that series is just about over. And it's unfortunate, because a lot of people, including myself, were hoping that Dame could really make this interesting series. But at the end of the day, Portland just did not have enough. They don't have any wings whatsoever. They got guys like Gary Trent and Carmelo Anthony trying to guard LeBron James. Like, that's just not going to get it done, especially in the postseason. And, yeah, LeBron just been eating them up over these last couple of games. But all credit to Portland. If they could add, I don't know, a couple defensive wings to their team next year, it can make a big difference. But, yeah, I just, honestly, I don't see Portland ever competing for a championship. I believe Dame and CJ are a great duo, but if there was a way that they could trade CJ and get somebody else, someone more defensive minded, but could still get buckets as well, I'd probably make that deal just because I believe it'd probably be a better fit with Dame, would raise the ceiling of that team. But who knows what Portland will do? They're probably going to bring back Carmelo Anthony. They get Trevor Ariza back, who opted out of the bubble. So we'll see what happens with that. It should be interesting. Portland's always going to be a team that contends for a playoff spot every single year. They're always in the playoffs. It was just it was a very unfortunate year for them. There's just a lot of injuries, a lot of stuff to overcome, and they had to play their asses off just to sneak their way into the postseason. So it's starting to catch up with them now. You could see it. Like Dame, he was giving everything he had out there, and yeah, finally caught up to him. Like I said, he got injured, and he's gonna miss the rest of the postseason. And yeah, the Lakers are probably gonna coast in the last game. I don't. It's probably gonna be a blowout in that last game, unfortunately. Um, and then we'll move on to, yeah, like I said, Pacers and Heat. Yeah, Pacers. Yeah, they had no chance without Sabonis. Like I said, it's very interesting what I think could happen with the Indiana Pacers in the offseason. Like, do they consider trading Oladipo? Oladipo's going into the final year of his contract next year. He doesn't appear to be the same player he was before the injury. He made, I believe, second or third team All NBA just a couple years ago. His first year in Indiana. So if he could find a way to get back to that before the trade deadline next year, they'll probably keep him. But let's just say, for instance, he comes back and he's looking like how he has in this playoffs. If I was them, I'd probably consider trading him just because you're not going to want to max out a guy like that. And he's going to be asking for a max. So I would just find a way to build around Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis is a very great player. And if I was them as well, I'd probably try to trade Miles Turner as well. In today's NBA, I just think it's too difficult to play two bigs at once. That's just not the way basketball's played anymore. Everyone's going small, and their offensive numbers are very bad. Like in terms of 3-point shooting, all this, like 3-point shooting, points scored, all that stuff. They're one of the last teams ranked in the league in terms of offense, and it's not going to get it done in the playoffs. Like, you need guys who can get buckets quickly in the playoffs, and they don't really have a guy like that. So it'll be interesting to see what Indiana does in the offseason. And then moving on to Oklahoma City and Houston. And I believe after the first two games it was going to be a Houston sweep, but Oklahoma City these last two games has found a way to win in the end, led by Chris Paul. Chris Paul at the end of these games has just been unbelievable. He's just been hitting every clutch shot you could think of. He was a leader this year in clutch points in the NBA, so he's just picking up right where he left off. And yeah, other guys have stepped up too, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I believe he dropped 31 points in game two. Even though they did lose that game, Shai is really starting to pick up his game in the playoffs. And Dennis Schroeder as well. Schroeder's low-key been their best player. He had 30 points tonight. He's been really keeping their offense afloat. It's a very tough lineup to stop. The Paul, Alexander, Schroeder, Gallinari, Adams lineup. I believe it was the number one ranked starting five in the league, or the number one ranked 5-man unit in the league. So Houston's had a tough time stopping that. And Houston, their problem is that they live by the three and they die by the three. So when they're hitting their threes, they're obviously unstoppable. With the amount that they shoot, they're shooting damn near 63s a game in these playoffs, which is just ridiculous. They're breaking their own records of 3-point shooting in a single game in the playoffs. But these last couple of games, they've just gone completely cold in the fourth quarter, and that's just been the difference. So it is 2-2. I still believe Houston's going to win this in 6, with or without Westbrook. Houston may feel a little bit pressured to, tell Westbrook to rush Westbrook back, but I believe they're probably just going to finish out the series without risking injuring Westbrook any further to set him up for the hopeful Lakers series for them. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, it should be interesting. It would not surprise me if the series goes 7. There's a lot of pettiness in this series. Chris Paul probably wants to get back at his old team. definitely. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Bucks and Magic, yeah. Everyone knew this is pretty much this was pretty much going to be the way the series played out. Orlando shocked everyone with the game one win over the Bucks, but ever since then, the Bucks have just completely steamrolled them. Magic have had no answer for Giannis, obviously. Giannis did win Defensive Player of the Year, was just announced today, and he's probably going to win MVP. So I believe I can't remember the last time a guy won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same year. It was probably Jordan. Honestly, I really can't remember another guy who did it. Maybe David Robinson or something like that. But yeah, of course, they have no answer for Giannis. But one thing that is a bright spot for the Orlando Magic is Nikola Vucevic. He's averaging over 30 points a game in this series. So they definitely have something in Vucevic. The problem is with the Magic is they have no real exciting young players for the future. I would say Jonathan Isaac could be one of those guys, but he just keeps getting injured. As we all know, he tore his ACL, and it's just very unfortunate with him. I believe like if Jonathan Isaac could stay healthy, this guy could be a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Like that's how good he is. He was one of the league leaders in blocks as a wing, so you know this guy is just a special defender if he's able to do that. Unfortunately, he's probably going to miss all of next year since he tore his ACL only a couple weeks ago. And with the way that the schedule for next year is lining up, he's not going to be able to play all next year. So that's unfortunate for them. Do they explore trading Aaron Gordon or Mo Bamba? That remains to be seen. Mo Bamba has just been a DNP this entire series, and Aaron Gordon's been out with an injury. So, but credit to the Magic, they have played hard, but it's just a complete talent mismatch. Like I said, no answer for Giannis. So I expect that series to be over tomorrow night in 5 games. And then today's games, yeah. The Jazz and Nuggets series has been one of the most entertaining series I've seen in a long time. The duel between Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray has just been something special to see. Uh, just I believe last game they both dropped 50, and I think that's the first time in playoff history two players from separate teams have dropped 50. So both these guys are just special scorers, obviously. But Jamal Murray was the man tonight. Denver was able to cut it to a 3-2 lead for the Utah Jazz. Game 6 is in a couple days. I believe this is going the distance. I believe it's going to be a 7-game series. And I do believe Utah's probably going to win. It's going to be too much for Denver to come back from 3-1, but I believe they are going to make it interesting. And yeah, the problem with Utah, like we're seeing Donovan Mitchell ascend to becoming a superstar player, but they kind of suffer from the same thing as they always have, which is not having another go-to scorer in the playoffs because they are missing Bojan Bogdanovic, and once he comes back for them next year, they should be a lot tougher to take out in the playoffs. And yeah, it should be good. And then last game of the night, we're going to talk about the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. And unfortunately, Kristaps Porzingis did not play this game either. He's suffering from a knee injury currently. Hopefully he's back in the next game, but who knows at this point. Luka Doncic, it seemed like his ankle was bothering him a lot tonight. He wasn't very good, only 6 of 17 shooting. This was a complete beatdown by the Clippers. This is the Clippers team that everyone's been hoping to see all year, and Paul George answered a lot of questions. People have been talking about playoff P and just like the fact that he doesn't deserve that nickname with his struggles in the playoffs throughout his entire career. But Paul George shut everyone up tonight with 35 points in only 25 minutes. So this man was just killing it. Montrezl Harrell, he actually hit a 3 tonight, which the Clippers bench is very animated tonight. Like it seemed like they made a point to like show how together they are because people were trying to question their chemistry and such, but it just I mean if they keep playing like this, we're gonna get the LA conference finals. So yeah, Kawhi Leonard obviously 32 points. Kawhi Leonard took over that first quarter, really set the tone for the rest of the game. The Mavericks were never really able to recover, and yeah, what we'll see what happens with Porzingis. I'm hoping he can come back for the next game, but I'm not very confident in that. So Yeah, unfortunately, I believe the series is going to end next game in 6, and it'll be interesting to see who gets out of the Denver and Utah series to face the Clippers. But yeah, it should be interesting. And yeah, that's gonna do it for the podcast today, guys. Thanks everyone for listening, and everyone have a good night. Thank you.